Fantastic, you guys. It's always a treat for me to be a speaker here because I get to listen to them, and I love the addition of the sax. That's very cool. Yeah. So I woke up with a little illness. I was trying to protect you all by wearing a mask, but I have to point out that it is a Seahawks mask. Yeah, baby. How was that for a Super Bowl? Pretty good, pretty good. So it's always an honor when Lisa invites me to speak to her beloved community, and I just really appreciate it and speak her into this room as well. She was really one of my key mentors when I was going through ministerial school. So this is my Unity home away from home here now, actually. I have been thinking a lot, found myself thinking a lot lately about the spiritual principles of acceptance and non-resistance. And it's been a challenge because I'll be blunt. There's a lot going on in this world that feels pretty unacceptable to me right now. The non-resistance and acceptance has been something that has not come easily to me. I have been an environmental activist my entire adult life and resisted the destruction of nature for greed and other activist issues. And like many, I had fairly abusive parents, and I sure as hell resisted them and did not accept a lot of their actions. And so really, in my lived experience, I came to view resistance and non-acceptance as kind of a badge of honor. It was part of my identity to a significant degree. And it was about 30 years ago in my own spiritual journey that I came across the concept of non-resistance as a spiritual principle. And boy, did I resist that. You know, in your own journeys, have you had those moments where you kind of, you get this new awareness or this new idea comes in and you don't like it, but it keeps drawing you. You can sense there's kind of something there. That's how this has been for me, and I've made real progress with beginning to integrate these and understand these concepts and the paradoxes that they bring with them. And I think I'm about half-baked with this, and I knew that this talk, developing this talk, would be a stretch for me and force me to bake a little bit more. So I'm just going to share my level of understanding at this point, subject to change, as I do. I believe it was Charles Fillmore, one of Unity's founders, who used to say that a fair amount. Like, this is what I believe right now, subject to grow and change as I do. So that's the cool thing about new thought, right? We're open at the top. We're ready for new thinking. So, and you guys can straighten me out afterwards if I really get this wrong. For those of you who are new, Unity is one branch of New Thought spirituality. And one of the main tenets of New Thought, it's a very empowering path. One of the tenets is that our thoughts are powerful. How we think and how we direct our thinking really affects our experience moving through life. And we have agency over that thinking. So we really get intentional in New Thought with learning how to focus and train our minds to focus in more positive directions. Acceptance as spiritual principle is active, non-judgmental acknowledgement of reality, of the mess, perhaps, that we are sitting in the midst of. Non-resistance as spiritual principle is the practice of accepting that present moment without internal or external struggle. It's choosing peace over control in order to reduce conflict in our own lives. Now, here's where this started to a tumbler clicked into place for me. When I realized that non-resistance and acceptance are not passive. It's not about just being resigned. Acceptance means not ignoring or denying the reality before us. And I think sometimes in New Thought, we can go a bit down a rabbit hole of the whole denials and affirmations, right? Let's not look at this thing that is happening in my physical body, or like I have a little cold. I'm host to a virus right now. It won't last long, right? But but I'm going to treat it. I'm going to treat myself well, not ignore that I have it. So it's looking at that, but it's also teaching ourselves to focus on what's the outcome. This may be the crap that's going on right now, but I'm going to at least put part of my consciousness on what I want the outcome to be beyond this. I am finding it is incredibly useful to me personally in applying the lenses of acceptance, non-resistance in different arenas of life. My own personal living circumstances, relationships, and this bat bleep crazy world that we are all dealing with right now. So I really doubt that there is a person in this building, or probably in all of humanity, that hasn't had the experience of wishing our life were different than what it was, right? I mean, there's not enough money, the job sucks, the partner has an affair, you get a terrible diagnosis, or you get in an accident and bust yourself up, whatever, yada, yada. It's endless. There are endless choices here. The natural human instinct when we are experiencing things in our lives that we don't like is to resist it, is to put up internal barrier. It's to regret or resent. But regret and resentment leads to chatter, and it takes the focus away from what we could actually be doing in that moment. We can create our own suffering for hours or even days, resenting the circumstances that are real in our lives at that moment. And then, of course, there's the past, right? Some terrible things happened in the past. We're still in therapy to deal with whatever that was, right? I mean, if only I hadn't been born into poverty. If only I had made a different decision in that moment. All of that stuff is real, it's legit, and it's hard. But here's the deal. The best way to move beyond an undesired condition is to accept what is and what was, release resistance to it, and that way you start to get clear about what we actually can change. This, I've seen some nodding heads. I think I'm hitting on, I'm half-baked at least in what I'm sharing here. So that's good. That's good. This is, like I said, this is a stretch topic for me. So you can't change what's before you right now. You can't change the fact that I'm on this stage, but you can change everything going forward from here. If you all wanted to, in a couple of minutes, you could have me off this stage. I'd fight you, but you could. You know, you can change it going forward. You can't change the past. You cannot change what happened, but you can change the stories you tell about it. I could do a whole talk on that. I've written a lot about that, changing the story. Yeah, the crap happened, but are you a victim or a victor? That's your choice. The lens you put on it, the story you tell, is yours to tell. So what are some of the tools that we can use to step into this more empowered approach to acceptance and non-resistance? Here's one that was a doozy for me. Surrender. Oh, I never liked that word or that concept, right? I was a fighter. Well, some of you know my story. A decade or so ago, my life blew up in big public fashion, and it was just like, it was an ordeal, and a long one. And resistance is too thin a word to describe what I was feeling in the early months of that. I mean, it was rage, hatred, anger. I was mad at God. What the hell, you know? It's like, I mean, I would literally fall asleep hoping that I would wake up and find it was a nightmare. And then I would wake up into the same mess and be so angry and so resistant. And that went on for a few months until life just beat me down, and I just couldn't fight it anymore. And there's a very distinct experience of the first big breakthrough of surrender that I don't have time to tell you, but it was profound. It was a mystical experience. And I finally just realized I had to accept that I was not going to be able to change where things were going or the timeline associated with the mess in my physical life at that point. And here's what blew my mind. When I finally surrendered, I liked it. I liked it. I just quit pushing so hard, and it felt great. And I actually started focusing on my inner life in that moment and my inner work. It was the first time in my life that I had stopped working and just allowed myself to be worked on. So surrender, and surrender itself is not just passively taking something. It's making a choice that I'm going to allow this thing to roll out, and I'm going to focus and do what I can in the middle of this mess. This opened up like a real a real period of transformation and growth for me. Some of you know my partner, John. I came over a little early to help him because he's been sick, and then I got sick too. We got sick independently. That's why he's not here. He sends his best wishes. But when we went through our big ordeal together, but I was a little ahead of him in getting kind of into the transformation of it. And he would literally look at me in times because of the way I was moving through the world, and he would look at me like, who are you anyway? In a good way, it was really kind of interesting. Another tool, living in the present moment. This is the single greatest power for overcoming fear that I have ever experienced. When I'm freaked out, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bill. I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent in 3 days. I don't know. I know what that feels like, by the way. I've been there, that financial fear. Or I don't know, I really need this job. I don't know if I'm going to, whatever it may be. 98% of the time, if you actually ask yourself in this very moment, right now, am I okay? 98% of the time we are. Right? And coming into that awareness frees up possibility for solutions to the thing that had you freaked out. So for me, when I start feeling fear of any kind, I mean, if you got to jump out of the way of a rattlesnake, that's something different. That's a different kind of fear. So am I okay in the moment? Here's another one. Letting go of expectations. Releasing a rigid, preconceived notion of what life should look like. And here's a really important one. Or what the solution to the problem should be. This has been a superpower for me too. I struggled with this at first because I've also had a lifelong, even before Unity and New Thought, I was a believer in visualization. I was an athlete. I had tremendous injuries. I used visualization and imagination to improve athletic performances, to literally visualize a busted up knee healing and repairing and getting to the point where I could run again. The doctor had told me when I had the original injury that I wouldn't run again, and I wanted a soccer scholarship. With that knee, I needed one to go to college. And so it took, I was 21 at the time. That was probably maybe my first surrender, now that I think about it. Because what I did, man, it was painful and it was awful. But what I did is I was like, okay, this is going to change my timeline. I'm not going to be able to go into college exactly when I wanted to. I would visualize those tissues healing, that working. I would visualize myself running. I would visualize myself kicking a soccer ball. And again, it took 18 months, a lot of painful therapy, a couple of additional surgeries, but I got that scholarship. It was allowing that I don't know how this is going to work out, but I know it's going to work out. So I did accept that I was seriously injured, but I did not accept that doctor's diagnosis. There's a balance there, I think. Here's another example. I ran up some credit card debt. I could not see any way of paying it off. This was a few years ago. I couldn't see how I was going to pay it off. But I had paid off debt before, so I visualized. I went in, I visualized what it was to go online into online banking, to hit that thing, to push the full amount, hit send, boom, done, and I sat in that feeling. And I literally got to where I would say, and I use this to this day, I don't know how this is going to resolve, but it's going to be really fun to watch it happen. Right, so part of the empowered approach to non-resistance is focusing our energy and our consciousness on a desired outcome, but freeing up what the solution might be to get us there, how that might come about. Relationships. Ooh boy. This is another arena for me personally that I very recently have had tremendous benefit from this concept of acceptance. I have had quite a classroom for this with my nephew, my late sister's son. I fell in love with him when I first met him as a little infant, which had never happened with me or since, honestly, with a little baby. I became a foster parent so that I could get custody of him at 16. Couldn't keep him off the drugs, had to send him back to DHS, supported him through a lengthy prison sentence. After that, was there to scoop him up, went back to get him out of prison in a different state, brought him up to live with me, and John and I have supported him in many, many ways, and years, tears, thousands of dollars later, he continues to create chaos. And he recently did a year in prison here in Oregon, and as he was getting out just a few weeks ago, I could feel, in talking to him, kind of trying to figure out a game plan, I could feel that unique flavor of stress that I have related to this relationship and all the history with it, right? And I realize with him, because I do love him so much, and I feel so bad about the really horrific childhood that he had, that it's easy for me to get into enabling with him, which surprises me, because I don't think I've ever done that with anybody else, but he's my classroom with that. I have had to accept that I can't fix him. I can't save him from himself. I see nodding heads. This is so hard when it's your loved one or your child. I know so many people go through it. I've had to accept that he too is a spiritual being on his own journey, and his journey is not my responsibility, right? John and I bought him a cell phone. We bought him a week in a motel because he has nothing, and we would have continued on. Didn't hear from him. He just ghosted, and I don't know what he's doing now. I continue to love him. If he calls me, I'll tell him I love him. I'll be angry, but I'll tell him I love him. I continue to hold him in affirmative prayer and visualize success, but I have detached a lot, and it's healthy. I think it's a recovery statement, I think is where I heard this, that detachment doesn't mean you don't love them. So the concept of acceptance, accepting that they're on their own journey and it's not our responsibility, very powerful, very, very powerful for me. Okay, what now with this crazy bat bleep world that I mentioned? How do we bring acceptance? I tell you guys, I was just getting ready to practice this talk yesterday morning before coming over, and I heard about Iran, the situation there, and another war, bypassing Congress to launch another war. And I was angry yesterday. I wrote about this in my Transcend, actually. I was as pissed as I've been over this whole last year, and I was exhausted. I think a lot of us are. It was cumulative, right? This is where we are. And what I know is that I am here, and you are here right now, right in these times. And I don't know if everything happens for a purpose, but I know that we can make purpose of everything that happens. We have, the people who have new thought tools, we have role to play right now. We have a role to play right now. So I have not accepted that non-resistance means passivity. Jesus was an activist, right? He did not resist his life path, even knowing ahead of time that he was going to face horrendous torture and murder. But he was not a pacifist. He overturned the moneylenders' tables. He called out their hypocritical and harmful ways. Now, he didn't attack the moneylenders behind the tables. He went after the actions rather than the actors. That's one piece of nonviolent activism in the real world. I have accepted, as an activist, that I probably am not going to change the whole freaking global capitalist economy to one that is restorative to nature and good for all people. That's pretty much been the goal of my life. I'm probably not going to get there fully, right? I've accepted that I'm probably not going to be able to experience the thing that I long for above all else, which is to be part of humanity that is a restorative force on this earth. Yeah. I'm 58. I'm probably not going to see that. But that doesn't mean I stop striving for it. Being in acceptance and non-resistance doesn't mean you don't strive, right? I think striving is a universal human condition. One of the tools for this is overcoming with good. When I'm at a demonstration, and I've been at a lot of them this last year, and lots before that, and I will be at more, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute, but when I'm there and someone flips me off, I blow them a kiss. right? It's the whole idea of like the Portland Frog Brigade. How can you really be that mad at that, right? It's brilliant. So it's overcoming darkness without becoming dark. This thing about eye for an eye is BS, right? We overcome that by demonstrating and fiercely deploying something better. And again, I used the term before, I actually think in this particular arena of the collective conscious society, nonviolence is a more helpful term than non-resistance to me, because I believe right now we need to resist. There's a difference. We need to resist with peace in our hearts, how we stay about it, but this is a time for action. And if I turn some of you off with that, I'm so sorry, but I feel so strongly about this right now. I hear so often from people, and I feel it myself, the stress of these times, the uncertainty, the feeling of disempowerment, and that is why it's more important than ever that we do our own spiritual practices. We keep putting our mask on first, right? We do our meditation, we maintain our peace, we stay active and engaged, and then we take a break when we know we're overloading, right? Because we have got to maintain our inner health for the long haul here. Now, I hope that some of you listening to this today, maybe who haven't been actively engaged before, will accept that we are in a time that cries out for us to act, to overturn the tables on those who are inflicting harm on vulnerable people, our one and only beloved planet, and democracy. This is where we are, peeps, and we have a powerful, powerful role we can play. The next big national day of action to save democracy is March 28th. Probably a lot of you know of that already. There will be peaceful, joyous demonstrations taking place all across this country. I guarantee you there will be a bunch here in Portland and wherever you are online. There's an online map where you can go and find where these events are happening near you. I really believe, I've spoken about it here before, I think that in these turbulent times, it's not a call just to resist dark developments. It may be an opportunity to transcend to a higher level of consciousness and a world that works better for all beings. And that is something I do wholeheartedly accept. Peace out.